Happy Wednesday, everybody. We're back again, and Marvin and I are ready to read another chapter in a story of the Cherokee Trail of Tears. And when we left off, Green Fern has died of the coughing sickness while she was kept in the pen like an animal. So obviously Green Fern is very distraught. So we're going to find out what happens next in the chapter called Rain Comes. Aunt Key helped Soft Rain care for Mother. She shared her water ration with them, just as they had when Green Fern was ill. For many nights, Soft Rain fell asleep crying, awakening with a start when Mother coughed or heaved, struggling to breathe. Afterward, she'd fall back asleep in Aunt Key's arms. When Mother was a little better, Aunt Key said, "Walk around, Soft Rain, talk with the children." Soft Rain shook her head. "Not until Mother is all well." Then it became too hot to move. For most of each day, they sat under the shade of Mother's tent. Aunt Key and Mother talked about when they were little girls. "Why didn't you go to school?" Soft Rain asked. "Well, we didn't have to," Aunt Key answered. "We learned stories and cooking and sewing from our mother, your grandmother." "And from your grandmother?" Soft Rain asked. Mother smiled. "Yes, she was a good teacher and storyteller." Soft Rain thought about her own grandmother. Would she see her again? Would she ever hear another of her stories? How would she remember the ones Grandmother had told her? While listening to Aunt Key and Mother, she figured out a way. Every day, she thought, if I can recall a story, then to tell it, I'll remember. "Listen to me tell one of Grandmother's stories," she said. Mother and Aunt Key nodded. "When I was a girl," she began, "this is what I was told about the Utinka, that huge snake that has shining scales and horns on its head." She paused. Her mother smiled. "It lurks in deep river pools and dark mountain passes. Once 2 brothers went hunting in the mountains. While one was looking for a deer, he came upon the great Utika coiled around a man who was fighting for his life. Taking careful aim, the hunter sent an arrow through the snake. The man was so grateful for his life, he found a glittering scale from the snake, burned it to a coal, wrapped it in deerskin, and gave it to the hunter. 'You can always kill game as long as you keep this,' he said. And from that day on, the hunter found game wherever he went." Sharing stories helped Soft Rain forget her troubles and overcome some of her grief about Green Fern. She remembered how Grandmother and Old Roving Man had told stories to each other. She could still see Old Roving Man's thin fingers tugging on the ends of his white hair as he began a story. When the smell of sickness in the camp worsened, the soldiers began opening the gate every evening. The real people lined up and filed out to empty the overflowing mess buckets. Soft Rain watched the river become lower and lower, too low for anyone to bathe in. Her skin felt stiff with dried dirt and old sweat. She saw that all of her people were as dirty as the soldiers. Every day the soldiers brought them less water. She was always thirsty. She wished and wished for rain, but none came. Mother rationed the water carefully throughout the day. "Sip slowly and stay still," she said each time they drank. She and Aunt Key stopped telling stories about their childhood. Aunt Key's thoughts were far away. Her eyes were often staring at something Soft Rain couldn't see. She never talked about Green Fern. Finally, Soft Rain asked her why. "We do not talk about those who have gone on to the Nightland," she answered. "But we don't talk of Father, Hot Boy, and Uncle Swimming Bear either," Soft Rain thought. "They haven't gone to the Nightland." She tried to remember a story of how the sun's daughter was turned into a red bird when she was brought back from the Nightland, but she had forgotten most of it. "Mother, do you remember the story of the sun?" "Now is not a good time for a story, Soft Rain," Mother said. In her head, though, Soft Rain still thought about Green Fern and Grandmother and her stories. She knew they would like listening to her if they were here. As summer passed, the sun climbed lower in the sky. Noises in the camp lessened. People kept dying, and no new ones arrived. One morning, Aunt Key was talking excitedly to Mother. "What has happened?" Soft Rain asked. "I smell rain. Today there will be rain." Aunt Key's eyes were bright with enthusiasm. Aunt Key had often correctly predicted the weather, if only she could be right that day. Before the sun had traveled far in the sky, it was hidden by a cloud. They sat waiting, hoping, watching the darkening clouds gather into great shapes that formed and reformed. When the first raindrops hit them, they whooped and jumped around and then stopped to stare upward, letting the cool water run down their faces, letting the drops fall into their mouths. Soft Rain watched Mother and Aunt Key singing and dancing together, stepping first on one foot, then on the other. Once they almost fell, and they bent double with laughter. The welcome rain stayed all day, washing them, quenching their thirst, lessening the heat. Soon after the rain came, they heard loud noises outside the pens, shouts, wagons, and neighing horses. Soft Rain peered through a crack. She saw soldiers and Tasoggi men loading the wagons with blankets, boxes, and cooking pots. No one came near to tell her what was happening until she saw the soldier with the shiny belt buckle. She slipped her fingers through the crack to get his attention. Once more she talked with him. "Soldier man, why are the wagons being loaded?" Once more she saw his blue eyes peering at her. "There are supplies in them for you Cherokees. You're going away," he answered. Soft Rain caught her breath and swallowed before asking, "Are we going home?" "First to Rattlesnake Springs. All the Cherokees will be there. Then to Indian Territory, to a new home in the west across rivers, valleys, and mountains." Soft Rain gasped. Without thinking, she blurted out Greenfern's fears. "The spirits of the dead go west, and they can never be happy because they're far away from home." She stopped talking when she realized he wouldn't understand. He walked away, shrugging. In no time, the gate opened and Big Boots came in shouting, 2 days. Be ready to leave here in 2 days. He looked straight at Soft Rain. "You tell them and be sure they understand." She stammered, I will," before running to Mother. "We're going to Rattlesnake Springs in 2 days. Will Father be there to meet us? All the Tasoggi will be there. How will he be able to find us in such a crowd?" With tears streaming down her face, Mother shifted Father's tobacco pouch from one hand to the other. Soft Rain had never seen her look so desperate. Finally, Mother sniffed, swallowed, and wiped the tears away with the back of her hand. By now, he must be in a camp like this one, ready to be moved west. I've heard the soldiers say that all our people are in camps. If he knows we're coming to Rattlesnake Springs, he'll find us. Perhaps he won't be there, though. Many of our people have already been taken west, some by land, some by water. "By water?" Soft Rain asked. "But what of the Ukiah hiding in the water? Seeing it may mean death. Will we travel by water?" Aunt Key put one arm around Soft Rain and the other around Mother. "Huh!" she snorted. "Maybe the stories of the Ukiah are only stories." While Mother and Aunt Key told the news to the women in the pen, Soft Rain told the children. Some of them, hollow-eyed and pale, only stared at her in silence. Others screamed in fear. Later, while Mother and Aunt Key talked together, Soft Rain tried her best to close her ears to the sobs, moans, and wails, the sounds of frightened women and children. She was frightened too, more often than she had ever been. Suddenly, she cried out, "Father would not leave without finding us. We can't leave without him." All right, so they're now off to the Indian Territory in the west. Exactly what they feared. All right, tomorrow we will read The Young Chief. Goodbye for now.